There are many stories from World War II that sound unbelievable, tales of bravery, survival, and friendship that stretch the limits of imagination. But among them, one stands out as truly unique. It's the story of a soldier unlike any other, a bear who marched, fought, and drank alongside men, a bear who carried ammunition to the front lines, who was given a rank, and who became one of the most beloved mascots in military history. This is the incredible true story of Wojtek, the bear that went to war. In the spring of 1942, a group of exhausted soldiers and refugees were making their way through the rugged mountains of Iran. They were members of the Polish Second Corps, men who had been through unimaginable suffering, freed from Soviet labor camps, and now trying to rejoin Allied forces to continue the fight against Nazi Germany. Among them was a young Iranian boy carrying a small, frightened bear cub. The cub's mother had been shot by hunters, leaving it alone in the wild. The boy offered to sell or trade the cub, and one of the Polish soldiers, taken by the animal's innocence, decided to take it in. Accounts differ on what exactly was given in exchange. Some say a few cans of food, others say a knife or a tin of condensed milk. But whatever the trade, the soldiers walked away with a living, breathing piece of home in their arms. That tiny cub was named Wojtek, a Polish diminutive of Wojciech, meaning he who enjoys war, or happy warrior. The name would turn out to be more fitting than anyone could have imagined. At first, Wojtek was cared for by a young Polish refugee woman who helped nurse him on condensed milk from an empty vodka bottle. As the cub grew, he was adopted officially by the 22nd Artillery Supply Company, part of the Polish Second Corps. He quickly became one of them, not just a pet, but a true member of the unit. The soldiers fed him bread, honey, fruit, and occasionally meat when rations allowed. He loved to eat, and even more than that, he loved to copy the men around him. Before long, Wojtek was sitting around campfires, playfully wrestling with the troops and learning to stand and march on his hind legs. He would even salute, or at least raise his paw, when prompted, and perhaps most famously, he developed a taste for beer, often sharing bottles with his human comrades. When offered cigarettes, he didn't smoke them. Instead, he'd eat them, crunching them down with a satisfied grunt that never failed to make the men laugh. But behind the humor and novelty, Wojtek became something much deeper. For soldiers who had been torn from their homes, families, and country, he was a symbol of hope, a living reminder that innocence and friendship could survive even in the darkest of times. As the Polish Second Corps moved through the Middle East, Wojtek went with them, traveling through Iraq, Syria, and Palestine, and later into Egypt. Everywhere they went, Wojtek drew attention. Local civilians, British troops, and other Allied units were amazed to see a massive brown bear traveling in military convoys, sleeping in tents, and playing with soldiers as if he were one of them. The Polish troops took immense pride in him. He was theirs, a mascot, a comrade, and a symbol of their unique journey. When it came time for the 22nd Company to move to Italy in 1944 to join the battle against the German forces, there was a problem. The British authorities didn't allow animals on troop ships. The Polish soldiers refused to leave Wojtek behind. So they came up with an ingenious plan. They officially enlisted him. Wojtek was entered on the unit's records as a private, complete with a service number, paybook, and rank. He was no longer a pet. He was now, in every official sense, a soldier of the Polish army. And so, Private Wojtek boarded the transport ship bound for Italy, standing proudly among his comrades as part of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. Italy in 1944 was brutal. The Allied advance up the peninsula was slow and bloody, with German defenses entrenched in mountainous terrain. Among the fiercest of these battles was the fight for Monte Cassino, a heavily fortified hilltop monastery that dominated the route to Rome. The Polish Second Corps played a crucial role in the final assault on Monte Cassino, and with them, as always, was Wojtek. During the chaos of the battle, the artillery units were constantly moving heavy crates of ammunition, each weighing over 100 pounds, to keep the big guns firing. The story goes that one day the soldiers noticed Wojtek watching them lift the crates. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the bear rose onto his hind legs, grabbed one of the wooden boxes in his paws, and began carrying it toward the trucks. At first, they thought it was a joke, but Wojtek kept at it, calmly moving back and forth, carrying crate after crate just like a human loader. The men cheered him on, laughing and shouting encouragement. Soon, Wojtek was working alongside the soldiers, helping to keep the supply lines moving under fire. After the battle, the company's emblem was changed to depict a bear carrying an artillery shell, a lasting tribute to their most famous comrade. Whether every detail of the story is literal or not, there's no doubt Wojtek became a symbol of courage and unity. Soldiers from all over spoke about the bear that helped them fight a war, and for the Polish troops, he was a living legend. Wojtek's fame spread throughout the Allied forces. British and American soldiers who saw him couldn't believe their eyes. Stories appeared in newspapers describing the bear who went to war. He marched with the men, saluted officers, and slept in tents. When trucks moved out, he'd sit in the back like any other soldier, his massive head poking out from the canvas. Despite his size, he was gentle with the men, though he had his mischievous moments. He would sometimes sneak into tents to steal food or start play fights that ended with half the unit wrestling a 500-pound bear. To the Poles, Wojtek wasn't just entertainment. He was family. They'd been through hell together. Many of these soldiers had been prisoners in Siberian gulags, starved and beaten before being released to fight again. Wojtek gave them laughter, warmth, and something pure to protect, something to remind them of home. When the war finally ended in 1945, the Polish soldiers faced another painful reality. Their homeland had been liberated from Nazi occupation, but now it was under Soviet control. Many couldn't return without facing persecution. The 22nd Company was stationed in Scotland during demobilization, and once again, they refused to abandon Wojtek. He was transferred to Edinburgh Zoo, where he would spend the rest of his life. For the soldiers, saying goodbye was heartbreaking. They had shared everything with him, from battles to beer. But they visited him often, and Wojtek never forgot them. Visitors to the zoo said that whenever he heard Polish being spoken, Wojtek would perk up, stand on his hind legs, and look around excitedly, as if expecting to see his old friends from the war. He remained gentle and playful, beloved by zoo staff and visitors alike. Over time, he became a national celebrity, the bear who had fought the Nazis, the bear who carried shells at Monte Cassino, the bear who saluted officers and drank with soldiers. Wojtek lived in the Edinburgh Zoo until his death on December 2, 1963, at around 21 years old, quite old for a bear who had once lived in war zones and army camps. When he passed, the news was met with sadness across Poland, Britain, and beyond. To many, he wasn't just an animal. He was a symbol of loyalty, bravery, and friendship that transcended species and borders. His memory lived on. The image of a bear carrying a shell remained the emblem of his unit, and those who had served with him continued to tell his story to their children and grandchildren. Today, statues and memorials to Wojtek can be found across Poland, the United Kingdom, and Italy. There's one in Edinburgh's Princes Street Gardens, another in Krakow, and others in places where he marched with his comrades. Museums have dedicated exhibits to him, and his story has inspired books, documentaries, and plays. Streets, pubs, and even charities bear his name. The Wojtek Memorial Trust, established by Polish veterans, works to ensure his story is never forgotten. What makes Wojtek's legacy so powerful is not just that he was a bear in uniform. It's what he represented. He embodied the resilience of the Polish soldiers who lost everything but refused to give up. He represented loyalty, courage, and a deep sense of brotherhood. In a war that saw so much cruelty and destruction, Wojtek reminded people that compassion and friendship could still exist, even between man and beast. Over the years, Wojtek's story has grown into legend. Historians agree that the core is absolutely true. A bear was adopted by Polish troops, became part of the 22nd Company, traveled through the Middle East to Italy, and lived out his post-war life in Scotland. What's sometimes debated are the details, like how many shells he actually carried or exactly how much he participated in the fighting. Some accounts, written long after the war, tend to romanticize or exaggerate the story, but whether every detail is literal or not doesn't change the heart of it. The bear existed. He served with men in war, and he changed their lives forever. In the end, Wojtek wasn't just a bear that went to war. He was a reminder that in times of unimaginable hardship, humanity, and even humor, can survive. He was a friend to men who had lost their families, a comrade in arms who brought warmth to a world gone cold. And though decades have passed, his story still reminds us of something powerful, that even in the midst of chaos, kindness and loyalty can emerge in the most unexpected forms.